What's up, my Central Unit? It's the Central Man here, so back again with another classic WWE pay-per-view review. Before we get to this video, if you wondering, if you hear noise in the background, it's a fan because today was hot. I'm not reviewing this classic pay-per-view in the hot weather without any cool breeze of a fan. Anyway, so yeah, I'm reviewing the first ever In Your House show in WWF history. In Your House 1, the premiere. So this show took place on the 14th of May 1995. This show took place on Mother's Day in America. This show, like the venue of the show, is at the Onondaga County War Memorial. Right now it's called the Upstate Medical University Arena in Syracuse, New York City. The attendance of the show was 7,000, and the first In Your House show received about 332,000 pay-per-view buys. If you're wondering what is the low bought WWF pay-per-view of 1995, Anybody? No? Anybody? That's right, In Your House 5 Seasons Beatings. That was the final In Your House show pay-per-view of the year. And that show received about 80,000 pay-per-view buys. I did review that show in the past. 1995 in the World Wrestling Federation. Right now it's the WWE, by the way. It's known one of the worst years in the company, aka shit wrestling. And also, this is a transformational period, you know, because they're kind of like planting the seeds earlier. They'll be soon become their boom period. They're gonna have several years later, you know, in the late 90s. That is the beer tier pay-per-views, you know, the B-rated pay-per-views, you know, the pay-per-views in between the big shows. Before the In Your House era, there is no pay-per-views, you know, every month for the Federation. So before that, you know, like in 1985, you know, you had the first WrestleMania. Technically, it's debatable, but, you know, it's a closed-circuit televised event. Then in November of 1985, you know, they did the Wrestling Classic. You know, that is the first pay-per-view that the Federation ever done. And then in 1987, you know, 2 years later, they added the first Survivor Series. You know, because the first few years they did the first 3 WrestleManias. Yeah, you had the Wrestling Classic, then added Survivor Series to the pay-per-view schedule. Then in 1988, they added SummerSlam. And then in 1989, they added the first Royal Rumble on pay-per-view. You know, it's technically the second Royal Rumble event, because the first Royal Rumble event was a special event on the USA Network. So in 1989, the Big Four is born. You had, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series. In 1991, they experiment of doing a 5th pay-per-view. That is the Tuesday Night of Texas. You know, it took place on Tuesday night. Not that good. That was known for, you know, that Survivor Series rematch between The Undertaker versus Hulk Hogan. So they tried to experiment again, this time in 1993, to add King of the Ring as a pay-per-view, and the Big Four became the Big Five. And I think the reason why they did that, because WCW in 1993 and 1994, they decided to expand their pay-per-view schedule. You know, they had like new shows in that 1994 period. Like, you know, they did the first Slamboree. They did Fall Brawl, Spring Stampede, Bash of the Beach. I think I did a show called Battle Ball, like I did, but that show was not that good. So, like, you know, I know they brought back in '95. They decided to bring back, you know, the Great American Bash, and then introduce another pay-per-view that'll last for several years, World War III. So that's enough story at the time. But so basically, like WCW starts to span their pay-per-view schedule. So the WCW is doing it. So do we. The we is the World Wrestling Federation. So like it's a good concept, you know, doing a pay-per-view in between the big 5 pay-per-views. And also the difference between of the In Your House shows and the big 5 pay-per-views. The big 5 pay-per-views are 3 hours long. I think like WrestleMania was sometimes could be 4 hours long. But with these In Your House shows, the In Your House shows are 2 hours long, and the big 5 pay-per-views cost a lot of money. The In Your House shows cost about $14.99. So let's do, you know, so pound signs, $14.99 in pound sterling. So in pound sterling, that's the currency in the UK, it costs £11.36. Like I think like in America, because I think it costs $30, $40. So in America, you know, I think back then it's cost you like 30 pounds in the UK. So it costs half the price, you know, between ordering an in-house show and a big 5 show. So yeah, the 2 hours long and the cost cheaper. So yeah, anyway, compared to the current timeline, you know, everyone's like, you know, this year they're just buying, you know, but like costing $1,000 to buy a WrestleMania 42 ticket. So anyway, the commentators for the first In Your House show, we got Vince McMahon and making his World Wrestling Federation pay-per-view debut, that is Doc Hendricks. So Doc Hendricks is Michael P.S. Hayes, part of the Fabulous Freebirds. He did try out become a wrestler in the World Wrestling Federation in February in 1995. I think he wrestled in a dark match, but unfortunately he had to retire due to his back injury. So he did wrestle years later in 1999 when he was managing the Hardys, and then he retired like completely, and then he's still in working with the company to this day. So yeah, he ended up like cutting his beard off, have a haircut, you know. Goodbye, Freebird, Michael P.S. Hayes. Hello, Doc Hendricks. So anyway, before we get to the actual matches on the show, let's do a quick result of the dark matches. So I think there were like 2. There were like 2, 3, 4, 5 dark matches on the show. 2 of them, I think that 2 of them were basically are part of Coliseum videos, you know. So anyway, so the first dark match, we got Hunter Hearst Helmsley, better known today as Triple H. This is probably one of his first matches in the company because he came from WCW, by the way. Defeats Phil Apollo in 6 minutes and 38 seconds. Then we got Jean-Pierre Lafitte, better known as PCO. Defeat Bob Holly. At the time, Bob Holly was doing the race driver gimmick. I think it's called Plug Sock Holly. I can't remember what it's called. He's basically, like I say, he's a race car driver. So can't remember the nickname of it. So anyway, Spot Plug. Sorry, that's his name. That's the one. Like Spot Plug Holly. You know, in 5 minutes 32 seconds. And then we got the other dark match. This is a King of the Ring qualifier match. Owen Hart, who's doing double duty on the show, one's a dark match and one's a match on the main show. Take on the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, like I said, in a King of the Ring qualified match, and that match ended in a draw. That means both Bulldog and Owen Hart are no longer, they're basically out of the King of the Ring tournament. You know, I did review King of the Ring 1995. I don't want to get into that. So, and then two matches were on Coliseum videos. You know, you had Bam Bam Bigelow, a former member of the $1 Million Corporation, defeating Tatanka. I'll get to that. Former member of the $1 Million Corporation when they get to the main event on the show. Anyway, defeat Tatanka with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, in 8 minutes 50 seconds. And then we got The Undertaker with Paul Bearer, defeated Karma. Karma is Charles Wright, aka Charles Wright, aka the Godfather, with the $1 Million Man in his corner. Defeated him in 13 minutes and 8 seconds. This is revolving around The Undertaker's I think they end of Wrestle in that year's SummerSlam. So that is the dark matches. Let's get to the main matches. So the main match, the first match to kick off the In Your House show. We'll get to this. I'll get to the contest later on in this review. So anyway, the first match to kick off In Your House 1, we got Bret Hitman Hart taking on Hakushi with Shinja in his corner. Shinja is formerly known as Akio Sato, like former member of the Orient Express. So, and also Bret is like Owen Hart. Bret is also doing double duty on this show. Like he's wrestling Hakushi in the first match, and then later on in the show he's facing Jerry the King Lawler. So anyway, this is in March. So in March, you know, Bret won an award I'm trying to get my words out. So Bret won an award by WWF magazines, and Lawler basically accused Bret to be a racist because you know he's racist to the Japanese people because like I'm guessing like Bret's folks from Japan doesn't count. I don't know. So anyway, so Hakushi attacked Bret, hit him with that trademark moonsault. So you know, I'll get to a little bit more of the Bret Jerry King Lawler feud when we get to the actual match later on of the show. So Bret's dedicate his matches, or both of his matches, to his mother Helen Hart. So anyway, the match between him and Hakushi is match of the night. Hakushi is basically, some people compare him to the Undertaker of Asia. I kind of like the Hakushi character because he's got these Japanese markings around his body. Like, you know, the reason why I compare him to the Undertaker because I listen to Hakushi's theme music. It's similar to Undertaker's theme music, and also both Shinja and Paul Bearer both wear whiteface. Yeah, this is match of the night. It's very rare to see the opening match to be the match of the night, you know. Hakushi's one of the most underrated workers in wrestling history. Like some of these his moves are so, let's say, revolutionized, I think. So like every time Bret was going for like some momentum, build some momentum, Hakushi cut him off. Like I think like Hakushi hit like Bret in like this type of move. It's similar to Jack Swagger's like corner bomb. Like he hit like hit the splash into that middle turnbuckle in the middle corner. So I think he hit like Bret with the hit him with the I think it was the diving headbutt that more associated to Chris Benoit. And also I think he's going for like, yeah, he was going for like the springboard splash, but I think Bret got out of the way. Shinja got involved. I don't really get hurt it. I wasn't annoyed by it, you know. You know, it didn't really hurt this match that much, you know. Typical shithousery. Not shithousery, but chicanery. Like, you know, Bret hit like, I think he hit the suicide dive and hit Shinja with it. So, like, anyway. And also there were like a USA chant even though both guys are not from Japan. Not Japan. What the fuck I'm saying? Sorry guys. It was hot weather, by the way. And it's just a hot weather. I'm getting my words mixed up. Anyway, there was a USA chance. Both guys are not from America. Like Hakushi's from Japan, Bret Hart's from Canada. Even though I think like his mother's American, so I'm guessing he's American by default, but he's not really American. But anyway, so Bret like I feel like he did his trademark sternum bump in the corner when Hakushi, I think it was like a going for that splash near the middle corner, the middle turnbuckle corner. So he does his trademark like Russian leg sweep and the bulldog. So yeah, he got more interference by Shinja. Hakushi hit his trademark moonsault onto Bret, So in the end, Bret he kind of rolled up Hakushi with a victory roll for the win. Like if you watch a lot of Bret Hart matches, he ended up like winning matches with the sharpshooter, But this time around, he just rolled up Hakushi with the victory roller, Like. It's funny. Like this is 2 months after the attack. Like this is like during like Bret Hart's build up to his match against Bob Backlund at WrestleMania 11. I'm gonna say way better than their match at WrestleMania 11 between Bret Hart and Bob Backlund. But anyway, so afterwards, Bret kind of like left the ring. Unfortunately, he kind of left the ring. He kind of fall out of the ring. Tweaking he kind of injured his knee in the process after he about to exit the ring, so it could play up to the second match of Bret later on in the show against Jerry Lawler. And also there was the kind of cut to Jerry the King Lawler watching the match on a TV monitor, because like I said, Bret's doing double duty on the show, so against Hakushi and then Lawler himself. So anyway, yeah, this is the match of the night, But I feel they missed an opportunity with Hakushi because I wish they'd done something more with the character, Like I think he had one pay-per-view match afterwards. I think it was in Survivor Series in November of that year, and then afterwards he was gone. I think he left late '95, early '96. He made an appearance in ECW years later after the In Your House 1 gig, and that was it for Hakushi in mainstream American wrestling. The one feud I wish they'd done was his feud with The Undertaker, because Hakushi represent the light, Undertaker represent the dark. Hakushi is a heel, Undertaker is a babyface. I wish they'd done something with it, Maybe I don't think it'll go into work. I think maybe due to like Undertaker's height, he's way taller than Hakushi. Like I think it's a bit bollocks. I think both guys are good in the ring. Could probably elevate Hakushi's stock. Maybe it's due to like this is the 90s. If he's over, not to say to the like I don't think he's like over right now, because I think everyone's doing like the moves in the ring right now, the wrestling right now is nothing stands out, but his like moves, his style was a bit revolutionary, maybe around the early mid 2000s, but not right now. But it's a shame, man. I wish they'd done something more with Hakushi. So anyway, so moving on to the next match. So the next match is a handicap match. So Razor Ramon taking on Double J, the Intercontinental Champion Jeff Jarrett, and the roadie. The roadie is the Road Dogg Jesse James. So this is a continuation of the rivalry they had like with Razor Ramon and Jeff Jarrett. It took place at the Royal Rumble in January when Jeff Jarrett beat Razor Ramon to become the Intercontinental Champion. Then it became like a 2-on-2 thing with added like with the roadie and the 1-2-3 Kid Sean Waltman, the Future 6 and X-Pac. So, because Razor defeat Jeff Jarrett at WrestleMania 11, but the match ended disqualification, so Jeff Jarrett is still the Intercontinental Champion. Originally, this was supposed to be a tag team match. Razor Ramon and the 1-2-3 Kid taking on Double J, Jeff Jarrett, and the Roadie. Unfortunately, the 1-2-3 Kid, Sean Waltman, you know, Six and X-Pac, whatever you called him. I think it was in a house show before this match on the show. He suffered a neck injury, and he was out for months. He ended up like, alright, he's not retired. He ended up like recover. He went on to have a lengthy career in not just in these 2 runs with the company. He ended up having runs in in WCW and also in TNA. Sean Waltman is out. The 1-2-3 Kid is out. Same person, but now this tag team match is a handicap match. Before we get to this, Jeff Jarrett lost the Intercontinental title. Basically, I found this on the Wikipedia page for the Intercontinental Championship. So he ended up the title was held up briefly because his match with Sparkplug Bob Holly was ending a controversial ending. So, and Jeff Jarrett the next night won the Intercontinental title for the second time, but the first, I think it was not recognized. Go look it on Wikipedia. So it's just what it is. So what you see, what you get. So anyway, the match between Razor Ramon, Double J, and the Roadie, I think it was a good match. It was not on the same level as the opener, but it was a good match. It my nitpick about this is a bit boring. I wish they cut some minutes off this match. Or if Sean Waltman 1-2-3 Kid was healthy, maybe it could be a little bit better, because Roadie, Road Dogg Jesse James at this time in his career was a bit green, but besides that, it was a good match. Both the heels working on Razor Ramon, fighting for wrestling for his comeback. In the end, you had Razor. You had Razor Ramon. You had one more in the match. I feel like he hit some random slam onto Road Dogg or Roadie at this moment in time. I thought it was a sidewalk slam, but I think it was just a pan on. He picked him up and slammed him. Roadie hit I think he hit the flying clothesline over Razor Ramon. I think he did some kind of splash. I think it was a flying knee. So Razor Ramon hit Double J with the Razor's Edge for the win. Afterwards, Double J and Roadie beating down Razor, tacking his knee. Jarrett locking the figure 4 leg lock. Then we got Aldo Montoya. That's why he's the future Just Incredible. He's kind of briefly feud with Jeff Jarrett, trying to come to the rescue, but he got the numbers game is towards Aldo Montoya, because at the time I think Aldo Montoya is kind of his jobber, so Jarrett and Roadie kind of beat down Aldo Montoya. And then we got this mysterious guy came down, coming out of the crowd into the ring while they're kind of beating down Razor Ramon. Jarrett locking the figure 4 leg lock. He's beating down Roadie and Double J. Jeff Jarrett, by the way, both scatter, and that person is Savio Vega. This is his first appearance in the company, but the guy was in the company before this. But prior to that, he was Kwang, the masked wrestler. So this was the start of Savio Vega's run with the company. Lasted about until 1998, So yeah, anyway, so I think they kind of dubbed him as he's kind of like a friend to Razor, an ally to Razor. So yeah, I don't think maybe he has some matches on Raw, but afterwards, both Jeff Jarrett and Razor Ramon end up trading back and forth with the Intercontinental title. 5 days later, in a house show in Montreal, Razor Ramon defeat Jeff Jarrett to become a record-breaking 3-time Intercontinental Champion. And then, I think it was 2 days afterwards, Jarrett regained the IC title belt, and also Jarrett became also a 3-time champion. So, like, yeah, I don't think, so I think, unfortunately, spoiler alert, they didn't really, you thought this set up like a tag team match at the next in-house show, Razor Ramon, Savio Vega against Double J, Jeff Jarrett, and the Roadie, but not. They end up facing Men on the Mission. Spoiler alert. So, anyway, so speaking of Men on the Mission, we got the next match. So the next match, this is a King of the Ring qualifier match. Mabel, one half of Men on the Mission, with Mo in his corner, taking on Adam Bomb. Adam Bomb is the future Wrath and Brian Clark. So it started in February. The fans getting sick of Men on the Mission. Like this, they were rapping, and then all of a sudden they had a match on. I think it was on Raw. Like they had a tag team title match with the Smoking Guns. They end up like come up short. Failed to capture the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Championship or Tag Team Championships. So afterwards, Men of the Mission beating down the Smoking Guns, and then they end up turning on their mascot Oscar. I think like in the interviews afterward, I think it was after this, he did an interview that it was his idea to turn Men of the Mission heels. So he ended up retiring after this. So Oscar is no longer part of the company at this moment in time, and this is technically their first pay-per-view appearance as heels. So anyway, this is the beginning of Mabel's push. Anyway, so the match was short. It's the shortest match of the night on the main show. It lasted about 1 minute 54 seconds. Adam Bomb, he was a bit high athletic, he did like a shoulder tackle. He ended up doing a crappy looking botched springboard clothesline. So anyway, Mabel hit him with the Izagiri kick. In the end, he kind of split. It's similar. This is similar to Mark Henry's World's Strongest Slam. Him with his like pattern random slam for the win. And yeah, Mabel's gonna get that push. He's gonna get that King of the Ring gig. He's gonna get that push all over the horizon. He's gonna win the King of the Ring tournament and went on to challenge Diesel in that year's SummerSlam. By the way, with Adam Bomb, this is his final match in the company because he ended up wrestling in the Indies. He ended up going to WCW as Wrath. Then Brian Clark, one half of Chronic, and he come back in the World Wrestling Federation as part of Chronic. And we'll get to Unforgiven 2001 in September for more information. So you have to wait until September, folks. I'm not saying it was a bad match. It was short, trying to play for Mabel's strength, because Mabel is just not that good in the ring, because he's weighed about 500 pounds, something like that. Anyway, so the next match, this is the first championship match of the night, first of two, by the way. This is for the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Championships. Owen Hart and Yokozuna defending with Mr. Fuji and Jim Cornette in their corners, defending the belts against the Smoking Guns, that is Billy and Bart Gunn. This is a rematch from WrestleMania 11 when Owen Hart announced his mysterious tag team partner, that is Yokozuna. The match itself was okay, wasn't bad. It was just like It's just like I feel like this is more like a TV wrestling match than a pay-per-view match. You're spending a lot of money, Anyway, so yeah, you got Mr. Fuji and Jim Cornette. Like this is before they formed Camp Cornette. Anyway, so the Smoking Guns hit like a double tag team. I don't think it's a tag team finisher. It was some kind of like tag team move onto I think it was on Owen Hart. And then they got distracted by both Jim Cornette and Mr. Fuji. Yokozuna hit I think he hit like a leg drop onto Bart Gunn. He kind of put he kind of dragged Bart Gunn into the ring, and then Owen pins Bart Gunn for the win, and Owen Hart and Yokozuna retain the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Championship. So it was okay because they just won the tag team belts. Make no sense for them win the belts at one pay-per-view, and then next month end up losing the belts 1 month later. Makes no sense. So anyway, so moving on to, was it the 6 matches actually? I'm talking about on the main show. You had Brett and Haikushi, the handicap match, Razor versus Double J and the Roadie, Mabel versus Adam Bomb, and then you got the tag team title match. So yeah, match number 6. We got Bret Hart taking on Jerry the King Lawler. This is a continuation. This is a renewed rivalry, because it started in 1993 when Bret won the King of the Ring tournament. Lawler declared he's the true king of the WWF. So, and Bret just called Lawler a Burger King. That was the start of the rivalry. Lawler attacked Bret. I think he attacked him on that show. The end of that show. It continued at SummerSlam. I think they had a match at SummerSlam. One of them, you had Doink facing Bret. So they're supposed to have this self-proclaimed. I think they were supposed to have this blow-off match at Survivor Series. Bret and his brothers taking on Jerry King Lawler and his Knights. But unfortunately, Lawler was pulled from the show because of the accusation, because of the sexual accusation he's done. Because because Lawler thought Lawler sexual assaulted a 15-year-old girl before he raped a 15-year-old girl, but unfortunately that's not the case. So Lawler was suspended. He came back. I think they did briefly interact in 1994, part of Jerry the King Lawler's King Court segment, but at this moment in time they're not really feuding because Bret was at the time moved on, feuding with his younger brother Owen. So they kind of re-continue it in 1995. Like I said, he's accusing Bret to be a racist, because of he won the WWF Magazine Award. So anyway, and also berating. I think he during that rivalry between Bret Hart and Jerry Lawler ended up berating Bret's parents, Stu and Helen Hart. So basically, he's pissed off because Bret is dedicate his both matches to his mother. Jerry the King Lawler is also dedicated to his match on Mother's Day. This is, by the way, on Mother's Day. By the way, in America, not in England. Our Mother's Day is in March. Their Mother's Day is in May. Anyway, so he's so pissed off, Bret dedicate his matches to his mother on Mother's Day. So Lawler is now decides to declare trying to get the words out, declare his match against Bret on Mother's Day. And he brought out his mom. Unfortunately, his mom is not his mother. She's actually a fitness model. I don't know what her name is. She's a brunette, So he's basically way younger than Jerry the King Lawler, because Lawler is part of Lawler's gimmick, they'll crank up his character in a 450 towards the Attitude Era. Anyway, so the woman who's telling Lawler, he said he challenged Helen Hart, So I don't want to get into it. It didn't really. I get it's Mother's Day. I understand it, but this don't really serve a purpose. And also before that, this is before the tag team title match. Lawler is about to get into the ring, but the WWE officials stopped him. Anyway, he kind of kissed Lawler in the cheek. It makes more for me to have you beat Bret Hart, something like that. I don't really care about that segment, like I say, it didn't really serve any purpose. And you're not going to see that female ever again. What's the point? I don't want to get into that, Anyway, the match between Bret and Lawler, it's just nah. It was okay. People want to see Bret kicking Jerry the King Lawler's ass, Before that, the knee injury sustained after Bret's match against Hakushi in the opener of the show. You thought Lawler's going to work on the injured knee of Bret Hart, but instead, Bret's knee is fine. I think both hit each other with power drivers. Lawler is this typical chicken shit heel. Fun fact, actually not really a fun fact, but an actual fact, you know, Bret Hart and Jerry the King Lawler kind of feud outside of the World Wrestling Federation. It was like they kind of feuded in Memphis, you know, the USWA it's called. It's in Memphis, Jeff Jarrett's promotion. Not Jeff Jarrett's promotion, Jerry Jarrett's promotion actually. You know, because at that time, because of it, in the US, in their feud in Memphis, you know, Lawler was a babyface, Bret was a heel. If you want more information of it, you know, go watch Brian Scene's video on it, you know, like when, I think he did a video when Vince McMahon did a heel turn in 1993 before the heel turn came out of the Montreal Screwjob. Anyway, get back to this match, you know, nothing much to talk about it. It was just like, you thought Lawler got the win. Unfortunately, you had I think you got interference by Shinja and Hakushi. I think like the referee was Earl Hebner. He's got his leg tied up on the ropes. So you had Hakushi did like a splash or the diving headbutt onto Bret while pinning. He hit like multiple splashes onto Bret Hart. So Lawler beats Bret Hart to win this match. And then they're trying to beat down Bret even more, but instead Bret, you know, got his like heat back, you know, overcome the heels, you know, Lawler, Hakushi, and Shinja. I think he ended up beating down Shinja, and yeah, and this is just set up the Kiss My Foot match at King of the Ring the following month between Bret and Lawler. That was basically I think it was the blow off to this match. I thought the blow off match was, you know, at SummerSlam 1995, the feud kind of blow off at 1995. You know, that's SummerSlam 1995 with Bret versus Dr. Isaac Yankem, better known as Kane. But anyway, so before we get to the main event, the hook about the first In Your House show. Before they get to this, I forgot to mention this. They did like the pay-per-view set for the show is good. I kind of like the whole, like you know, people. Yeah, I like the set, the pay-per-view set, you know, the front way of the house. Anyway, and the gimmick of this show, like they did this house competition, like the winner wins a house in Orlando, Florida, you know, and the host of this contest is Todd Pettengill and Stephanie Wyand. You're not gonna see Wyand ever again. I think she left in the summer of 1995. Anyway, they did this contest, you know, like Todd Pettengill calling the winner of this contest, you know, and that winner is a 11-year-old boy called Matt Pomposelli from Henderson, Nevada. That's outside of Las Vegas. The crowd did pop for it. You know, you thought there's going to be complete silence, a pin drop, no one cares about it, but they kind of react to it. They got some pyro of a person who's not really attending the show in person. So anyway, so unfortunately, the kid who won this house, you know, it's a good, yeah, again, like, yeah, I know it's In Your House, but yeah, the winner gets an actual house, you know, like, you know, like it's part of the theme. But the winner of this In Your House contest 6 months later end up selling the house because they're originally from New York City. They moved to Las Vegas or Henderson, or outside of Las Vegas, like I said, Henderson, Nevada. So they sold the house 6 months because they can't afford to have a second home. So basically, they sold it. I think it was a little bit more than the Federation bought the house for the contest. So, and I think the winner of that contest ended up, like, the money he spent or sold the house ended up paying for his college. So yeah, this is like over the years they end up doing like contests, you know. I think like years later they did the that $1 million contest, like leading up to SummerSlam 1997. Nobody wins that contest, you know. I think like wrestling throughout the years that at the Wrestling Classic, you know, you had you had a winner wins a Rolls Royce. I think at No Way Out In Your House in 1998, winner wins a Stone Cold Steve Austin's truck, his actual truck. And also, I think at Survivor Series in 1997, you got the super sweepstakes. You know, the winner wins a dinner with any WWF wrestler of his choice, and the winner picked Stone Cold Steve Austin. So, and then years later they did the $1 Million Mania. That went absolute nowhere, and they haven't really done a contest ever since for the company, WWF/E. Anyway, moving on to the main event. So the main event, we got Big Daddy Cool Diesel defending the World Wrestling Federation Championship against Sid/Psycho Sid. He's not really Psycho Sid yet, with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, in his corner. So this was after Diesel retained the championship against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 11. So afterwards, I think the night after WrestleMania, Sid was like Shawn Michaels' new bodyguard because he kicked Diesel to the curb. So all of a sudden, Sid turned on Shawn Michaels, powerbomb Shawn Michaels. The way to writing of Shawn Michaels, he ended up getting surgery. He was out of action for a month, you know, because this is Ted DiBiase's plan. So basically, Sid joined the $1 Million Corporation because this is DiBiase's plan ever since in 1988, because he wants the WWF Championship. So he can't really buy the championship, win the championship. He wants to be the manager of the WWF Champion. So it was really the $1 Million Man's suggestion to have Sid as his new bodyguard. So anyway, so they kicked Bam Bam Bigelow out of the group because he lost to Lawrence Taylor in the main event of WrestleMania 11. And then like not too long after that, you know, he lost the WWF Championship match against Diesel. And then they kicked Bam Bam Bigelow out of the group because he was self-proclaimed the gem of this group. So he got kicked out, and he's now a babyface. He just fought against Tatanka in the Coliseum match. That was a match you're not going to see on the main show, but on if you've got this on video, you know, or VHS it's called, you know, it's a match after the actual show went off the air. Anyway, so Sid, this is Sid's first World Championship match in his career, and this, you know, this is the second run of the company. You know, his first run was in 1991 to 1992, you know, like leading up to like feuding with Hogan at WrestleMania 8. So anyway, so this is the battle of two giants, you know, between Diesel and Sid. I don't really call him Psycho Sid, you know, he's not really Sid. I just call him Sid. He's not Sid Vicious. I think Sid Vicious, that's WCW, but he's not Sid Justice. He'll still become Psycho Sid, but I'll just call him Sid, by the way. So the match sucked, you know. Two guys with no chemistry. They're just like big muscle dudes. Had no business, man. You know, like I think like the whole bulk of the match, you had Sid locking the camel clutch onto Diesel. He hit Diesel with the power bomb, you know, and I'll get to more of that shortly. That power bomb. And then Diesel hits Sid with the powerbomb, and he thought he's like trying to pin Sid for the win. Out comes Tatanka, and then that match ended disqualification. The $1 Million Corporation beating down Big Daddy Cool Diesel. Out comes Bam Bam Bigelow. Like I said, it's still, you know, the Tatanka match at the Coliseum match. If you don't know, that's the match after this show went off the air, by the way. And by the way, they set up a tag team match between Diesel and Bam Bam Bigelow taking on Tatanka and Sid at King of the Ring. And you know, by the way, mention this, you know, this is set up the rematch between Sid versus Diesel at the next In Your House show in July. And also that powerbomb what Sid hit on Diesel, that led to Diesel injured his elbow, and also that really caused the tricep injury. Unfortunately, Diesel ended up wrestling a match on a house show. I think it was like the night after or something, or week. I think it was during the week. You know, he had a match against Kalmar in a house show. They both did like a double clothesline, and Diesel tricep popped, so he ended up getting surgery. And the doctors told Diesel he'll be out for 9 months. But unfortunately, here's the funny story. I think he said in interviews that, you know, he went to the gym. I think he did an incline bench press, and he kind of bench pressed while having a torn tricep. You know, I'm gonna say with you know, Diesel, Kevin Nash, whatever you call him, he's got hearts and like he has some balls of steel, man. He got some he's got hard nails. You know, wrestling with a torn tricep. You thought he'd be out for 9 months. No, he's back at he's out for 3 weeks. So yeah, he's like he's hard as nails. I'm trying to say, and yeah, you know, Sid, like, he didn't win the WWF Championship. You know, he ended up winning the championship the following year in 1996 at Survivor Series. You know, I think like if if Diesel basically didn't wrestle, he ended up forfeit the championship and be out for 9 months. You know, who's going to be the champion? Because maybe Brett, maybe Undertaker. Shawn was not quite ready yet, but I think they will probably give the belt to Sid, because I think Sid's stock is, they're trying to strip with the iron was hot. So, but I'm glad like Diesel ended up like recovering for 3 weeks, went on to hold that belt until the end of the year, dropped it to Bret Hart at Survivor Series of 1995. So, my overall rating of the first In Your House pay-per-view, In Your House 1, the premiere, I'm gonna give it a 5.5 out of 10. Is it a good pay-per-view? No. Is it a bad pay-per-view? Not really. It's just a pay-per-view, you know, it's above average on pay-per-view. This is technically, you can call it a one-match show, but for me, it's a 2-match show. The match of the night has to be Bret Hart versus Hakushi. The handicap match between Razor Ramon versus Jeff Jarrett and the Roadie, that was also good, but bit long in my taste, you know. But yeah, nothing much I put in the bad, you know, the con. Maybe the main event between Sid versus Diesel. The matches, like in the undercard, were a bit average. Like, they're not bad matches, they're just like belong on TV, you know, like Bret versus Lawler, the tag team title match. Mabel versus Adam Bomb was a bit short. I don't really call it a bad match, you know, it's just kind of there. Yeah, you know, even though like 1995 in the WWF was shit, but this was just, you know, like I said, it was just a subpar show. And this is only like 2 hours. Like I said earlier, these In Your House shows are 2 hours long compared to the big 5 pay-per-views. They're like 3 hours long, and then you know 3 hours became the norm. You know, when decided to do Ground Zero in 1997, 3 hours long, and now in like pay-per-views, mostly in WWE, now like 4 hours long. You know, like when they're doing the big 4 pay-per-views, you know, God help me, too long. Another topic for another time. Without the In Your House shows, there will never be like shows we associate, you know, like in between those big 4 pay-per-views, like the Backlashes, the Judgment Days, the No Mercies, the Unforgiven, Extreme Rules, Payback, Fatal 4-Way, Capital Punishment, Battleground. Did I say Battleground? There's so many pay-per-views, we can go on and on and on, you know, but yeah, so like I said, just a okay show. Not bad, not good, but it's an okay pay-per-view. for the first In Your House show. So, what's your thoughts on the first In Your House pay-per-view? Please leave your thoughts on the comment section below. Smash like button, click the like, click the bell, subscribe to the Central Man Network on YouTube. Be part of the Central Unit for more wrestling videos and more. Next time, so let's travel forward to the year of 2001. King of the Ring, the final King of the Ring under the WWF name. Stone Cold Steve Austin defending the World Wrestling Federation in a triple threat match against Chris, Jericho, and Benoit. You got two former WCW World Champions appear on the show, and also that Kurt Angle versus Shane McMahon match. You have to wait until next time. Until then, this is the Central Man officially signing out. Check you later.